I grew up in a really small town in California called Livermore. When my mom purchased this property back in 1985, it was pre-internet days, so it was pre-Bay Area. The Bay Area was only San Francisco, and then it sort of expanded outward, and Livermore eventually became part of the Bay Area. But back when we bought the house in 1985, I was only 4 years old. It was rural farmland. Nobody knew where Livermore was. So it was built in the house that we lived in was built in the 1950s. Standard 3-bed, 2-bath with a 2-car garage, which really only a car and a half fit in. And when this incident happened, the first incident, I was 16 years old. I was best friends with this girl named Jamie, who we had been best friends since I was 5 years old. We met in kindergarten, and she lived across town with her grandma, and I lived in the middle of town in a suburban neighborhood. Now, we had heard rumors about our house being haunted, but the rumors weren't like evildoers or evilness or demons or anything like that. So we thought nothing of it. And my mother had previously had ghost encounters, and she always said ghosts are just like people. They're good and they're bad. And then there's demons, and then there's angels, which are a totally different level. So she always, had it in our minds that ghosts are okay. They're not going to hurt you. Whatever. Now, because we were so poor growing up, we rented out the master bedroom. And the master bedroom was located in the back of the house, and it had its own separate bathroom. And it was the biggest room in the house. And then to the right was my room, and then my brother's room, and then my mom's room was in the front of the house. She was a single mother. Now, because we had such a low income, she was sort of forced to rent out the master bedroom for extra money. And we had lots of renters throughout the years. Some were good, some were really bad. But we had this one renter at the time named Jim. And Jim was this big, stocky guy. But he had previously done a lot of drugs. He was not on drugs or drinking at that point. But in earlier years of his life, he had done a ton of drugs. And it inhibited his mind a bit. So he was a little bit slow because of excessive drugs. Not because he was born that way or anything like that, but he was a little bit slow. But he was still working full time. I think he did like contractor work because he was always carrying his tools in and out every day whenever he left to go to work and come back home. He was always keeping his tools in his bedroom. He wouldn't use our garage, whatever. So the whole thing all happened when I was 16 years old. So we had a bathroom in the middle of the house, like between all 3 bedrooms. And we all had to share that, me, my brother, and my mom. And the bathroom was obviously a toilet and a vanity and just a bathtub. So there was no shower. So because there was no shower, there were no curtains, and it was just kind of like a big open room. And, well, not big, it was a bathroom. And then our vanity went all the way up to the wall where the door was, and the door didn't close. So there was a drawer on the vanity we would pull out so that the door wouldn't swing in as you're taking a bath. So it gave you the privacy, and you couldn't really see through the crack anywhere that would make it so you might catch somebody while they're taking a bath. We had this ugly yellow and white speckled tile. Again, we didn't have any money, so we couldn't exactly renovate the house or anything like that. It was an old house from 1950s, and I was 16 years old, so it was 50-year-old house at this point. And we had known about the previous owners, and there was also a rumor about a swimming pool in our backyard that the neighbor had taken the dirt and filled our swimming pool so that they could have a swimming pool. And we did come to find out later on that there was a swimming pool, and the only reason we found that out is because when we went to dig a garden, we were pulling up swimming pool pieces. There was also a old sewer from the 1910s in our backyard, so at some point our house had been on a street with a sidewalk. And that storm drain is still there in the backyard in the back corner. So it's just a random day. My mom has gone away for one of her, she didn't often leave the house, but when she did, she would typically go camping by herself out in the woods. She really loved nature and the wilderness, and so she'd want to get away from it all sometimes. And she would take her little Toyota Tacoma truck up into the woods, and she would just camp for a couple nights, for a weekend, just to get away from it all. My brother was staying with a friend, so he wasn't there, and the house was all to myself aside from our roommate Jim, who I was expecting to come home. And I was going in to take a bath. I was all alone, nobody was in the house. But one of the things that was really weird about Jim that kind of freaked me out, when I was 14-ish, I was out in the backyard sunbathing in a bikini, and he was watching me from his window. So I got really creeped out by that, and I stopped sunbathing immediately after that, and I never went and did it again, only because I was really creeped out. Now, I don't know if it was because of his mental slowness or some sort of strange attraction. Some guys are attracted to younger women, teenagers, so I don't even want to get into that, and honestly, I don't want to know because it creeps me out. So that was always in the back of my mind anytime I was stuck alone with Jim. Just, you know, not to go out of your way, but just don't walk around in just a towel or a robe. You know, make sure you have clothes on at all times. Put your clothes on after your bath and then leave the bathroom. So I was in the bathroom and I was just taking my bath. And Jim had this, because he was such a big stocky guy, he had these really loud footsteps. He walked really loud. It was just, you couldn't miss it. You could hear him breathing. He was one of those loud breathers. And I was in the bathtub, I was washing my hair, and I hear the front door open. And after living in this house your entire life, you know every nook and cranny and creak and shift that house makes. And it's really, really easy to know what those sounds are. So I hear him open the door, come in, and use his heavy footsteps, and he walks to his room, and I assume that he's putting away his tools, and then he goes back to the front door, and then you hear it open and close again, and then you hear it open and close again. So I'm assuming that he had brought his tools in, and he's bringing his second load of tools, and then he's gonna go. So I hear these heavy footsteps, I hear Jim walking in, and then they stop at the bathroom. And remember, back when I was 14, I had that whole sunbathing experience. So him stopping at the door, I was assuming that he was trying to look into the crack to see me naked. But you can't see anything. No matter how hard you look, you cannot see anything looking through that crack in the bathroom. And I started yelling at him, Jim, get the hell out of, get out of here. That's disgusting. You're gross. Get out of here. You're gross. I hate when you do this stuff. Nothing. And then I'm like, Jim, this is not funny. Go to your room. Get away from me. And then I hear that loud breathing, because he's a loud breather. I hear, right? And so I still have soap in my hair. I'm really angry, and I'm a fight or flight type person, and I always fight, typically. I mean, I'm more of a fighter than a flighter. So I get up, I throw my robe on, still have soap in my hair, I open the door, I'm ready to confront him, and I open the door, and there's nobody there. And I'm like, I'm livid. Like, he ran away like a little coward and something like that. So I grabbed my softball bat. I'd played softball my entire life, and I'm about ready to confront this guy. And I'm like, you're our roommate. You can't do this to us. You can't be walking around with little girls in the bathtub and all this stuff. I go into his room, and I don't, that was the rule of the house. Don't ever go into the roommate's room. Well, I went in. I was full force, ready to beat this guy up as a 16-year-old girl, ready to beat up a 300-pound man. And I was mad. I go storming into his room, and he's not there. And I'm like, oh yeah, well, how do you like it? So I figure he's hiding in his bathroom. So I'm at the door. How do you like it, Jim? How do you like it? Let me in. I open the door, he's not there. And I'm like, what is that? I heard him taking his tools. I heard him make 2 trips. What the heck? I go run out to the front door, still have soap in my hair. And I've got the baseball bat in my hand, looking like a crazy person. I run out there, I'm about to confront him. I think he's at his car, and I'm like, okay, and his car's not there. There was nobody in the house the entire time. So me, now I'm scared. I'm scared of the unknown. Everybody's afraid of ghosts, right? And I remembered that my mom told me that there were ghosts in the house, but you shouldn't be afraid of them unless they attack you first. Otherwise, they're just normal people who don't know that they're dead. Well, that conversation completely left my mind, and I booked it. I got in my 1985 Honda Civic hatchback with no air conditioning and soap in my hair in a robe, and I ran across town to my friend Jamie's house, and I stayed the night. I actually had to finish up my bath while I was at her house. And when my mom got home the next day, she's like, why didn't you drain the bathtub? And I told her the whole story, and all she did was laugh at me and say, you know, did you get hurt? And I said, no. And she said, well, now you know that, you know, like I told you, ghosts aren't really gonna hurt you. But that isn't the end of the story. So fast forward several years, I'm in my early 20s. I had a falling out with a roommate that was not paying his portion of the rent, and I was heavily in debt, and I went to stay with my mom for 2 weeks while I looked for an apartment after I had to break the lease with my roommate that wasn't paying rent. So I'm with her and I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna stay a couple weeks while I find an apartment. And she said, no, you're gonna stay here until all of your debt is paid off, all of it. So I ended up staying for 6 months, and then 2 weeks after I paid off my debt, I found a great apartment and I lived there until my mom passed away. But in the meantime, I was staying in the master bedroom. So Jim had been gone for years. He moved on with his life. My mom was able to have her finances together enough to where she didn't have to have a roommate anymore, although she liked having a roommate. So my mom had this big not big by today's standards, but she had this 1,500 square foot house. My brother had grown up and moved on. I had grown up and moved on. And I honestly think that she just liked having me in the house. So she told me to stay, and I was there for a 6-month period. So the way that I worked when I was getting out of debt was I worked from 6 a.m. until midnight, 6 days a week. And then on the 7th day, I would try to pick up an extra shift from one of my jobs, or I would go to Labor Ready, or I would collect cans and fix up my mom's house. So I would mow the lawns, clean the gutters, wash the windows, dust, vacuum, sweep, that sort of thing, just to kind of earn my keep. And I did contribute a little bit financially, but it was hardly anything. She wouldn't accept any money. So now I'm living in the master bedroom for the first time. My mother had turned my old room, she sold on eBay, and she had turned my old room into her eBay storage room and her work area where she did all of her listings. So I'm now in the master and I have my own bathroom. Great, cool. I took really great care of the room. I fixed it up. I did a whole bunch of stuff. But while I was there, there was this one night, or maybe it was an afternoon, I can't remember. I think it might have, no, it had to be in the afternoon because there was still some daylight left. And I started hearing some just noises in the room. And like I said before, when you live in a house for this long, you are just used to every single nook and cranny and creak and wind gust and everything in the house. And I started hearing weird noises. Like, I had a entertainment center that had my TV in it. This was the old tube TVs. So it had the big giant square and then a spot for your DVD and VCR player and storage area. And I remember having little trinkets on the top, like little not porcelain, but glass figurines, like dogs, dolphins, little animals that were on top of the TV stand. And I started hearing them get knocked over, and I was like, that's really weird. But I thought that maybe because I was sleeping, like, you know those moments where you're just about to fall asleep and then you think you hear something and you wake up and you're like, what was that? And it turned out to be nothing. Well, that's what I had assumed that was, but it kept happening. I kept hearing the clinking of the glass on top of my entertainment center. And I was like, that's weird. Then, immediately after that, I felt something. It started on my right shoulder. Now, I had a feathered duvet cover. and you can hear feathered duvet covers when they're moving. They make a very particular sound, like a kind of like a crinkling on your blanket, right? And I heard the crinkling on my shoulder. And then my heart started to race. I was fully awake. My eyes were closed, but I was terrified because I was under my covers. Everything was under my covers. I was sitting just like laying down just like this, and the covers were up to my neck. And if something was about to jump on top of me, I would have no way to move because you're under your covers and you can't lift something that's on top of you when you're under your covers. So I hear the crinkling and I feel it, and it's going all the way down. My heart is racing so fast. I can feel my heartbeat through my chest. I am terrified, on the brink of crying because I'm paralyzed. And it's not that I'm paralyzed that I literally can't move. I'm paralyzed because the blankets are on top of me and something is moving the blanket. So I can't, I'm afraid it's going to jump on top of me and I will literally not be able to move. And if that's the case, I don't want to see my own death, right? The crinkling starts at the right and then it goes very slowly all the way down to my feet. And this entire time my heart is pumping. I'm sure that I am turning red and I'm scared. I'm not whimpering, I'm not making a sound, but I am fully cognizant of what is going on. It gets down to the bottom of my feet and I'm like, what? Okay, here it goes. If I'm gonna die, whatever it's gonna do, it's gonna pull me up by the feet. I don't know what this thing is gonna do. It's gonna pull me under the bed. I'm ready, here we go. Heart beating super fast. Then the crinkling goes under my feet and starts going up the left side of my body. And I finally realized whatever this entity is, it's tucking me in. This ghost is tucking me in. I'm already tucked in, but it's tucking me in even more. So it goes all the way up to the top and then it stops here, and then I feel like that thing, you know, when you're tucking in a kid and you just kind of go like this under their chin. I felt that under my chin. I didn't move. My heart, I was sweating at this point, terrified. And when something like this happens to you, you think most of the time, I'm gonna be the hero, I'm gonna jump up with a knife and attack this ghost, or I'm going to swat it away because they're only made of energy, or you're gonna scream at it, tell it to go away, do your own exorcism on this ghost. But I was paralyzed in fear, not just from the fact that it was an unknown object, but because I was stuck under my covers. So if you're ever near a ghost, or you think you might be near a ghost, I would recommend not having your covers on you, just so you can make a quick getaway if that's necessary. But the strangest thing is that while this entire thing was happening, I was recollecting back to when I was in the bathtub and there was a ghost, and I remember, and then as soon as it hit the bottom of my feet and started tucking me in on the other side, I realized that these ghosts that were in my house were not trying to hurt me, but they were protecting me. They were protecting me, and they thought of me as maybe a family member or their child. I respected their home, I respected their space, and I respected their existence. I never tried to use a Ouija board or get rid of them. I never told them to leave. They were always welcome in my home. And now, people who watch my videos, the Prepper Princess videos, which is my other channel, they said that they always say that they see orbs in all of my videos. And I can tell you that the orbs that they are seeing are my protectors. Whether those ghosts came with me from California, or we have guardian angels, or we have friends and family that are lost ones that are watching over us, they are always with us. And the outcome of things that happen in your life can be directly correlated to how you treat these entities. All right, folks, that is my ghost story. That is what I've got for you today. I hope that you really enjoyed this, and don't forget to like, subscribe, share, comment, do your thing, and make sure that you hit the bell notification so you don't miss any of these weekly uploads. And if I'm ever doing a video without a green screen, make sure to check in the background because you will see orbs, and they are in almost every video on my other channel, Prepper Princess. Talk to you later, folks.